What up, and welcome to my Drana and Linvala EDH deck profile. I call this deck Lesbian Hatebears because it's Hatebears, and they were roommates. History will say they were roommates. I will say otherwise, and Wizards won't tell me because I looked up and I didn't see anything. Either way, this is a Hatebears styled Drana and Linvala deck. I found this card. I thought this card was sick. I'm like, I want to do crazy stuff with this card, and then while trying to do that, I'm like, what does this card actually just like play as a commander in? So what is Drana and Linvala? Activated abilities of creatures your opponents control can't be activated, and she has all activated abilities of all creatures your opponents control, and you can spend mana of any color to activate them. So it just takes everybody's activated abilities, including mana doors, including Yawgmoth, including everything. Yeah, so Hatebears is essentially kind of like Stax. I looked up what Hatebears was, so I'm like, what does this mean? Bears, obviously just tutus. Hatebears, tutus that do tax and mean things, which is the hate category here. Before going through the hate category, which is the majority of the deck, obviously, I'll go over some of the other categories first. So obviously every deck needs draw. If your deck doesn't have draw, it's probably not that good of a deck. Archers of Ogma solves both problems. You gain 1 life and you draw a card, and actually no, it didn't do anything when they search. I was thinking of a different card. Either way, good card. You gain life, you draw a card when people search, which people don't search that often, but when they do, it's nice, and it does kind of decentivize them, although not in a big way. Deadly Dispute, I don't know, they try and kill one of your things. In response, kill it yourself, make treasures, make a draw happen. Greed, this is enchantment that'll just let you draw whenever, because I feel like that kind of needed draw with such a low curve. You can play out your hand very, very quickly. Night's Whisper, draw 2, lose 2 life. There's so many types of these cards. There's a handful of other ones that you can include. Phyrexian Arena, thank god it got reprinted in Foundations because it was getting like to a $5 point for some reason. Great draw card, Sign in Blood, another good draw card. Let's go over the recursion cards, as there are very few. 1, Liaisa. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you return that card to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So somebody kills your thing, you get it back in your hand. It's very useful. There's also an Angel, which doesn't really do anything for the deck, but it's cool. Also, if a creature an opponent control would die, exile instead. Great effect for a lot of graveyard-based decks. Sun Titan is Sun Titan. I mean, this dude's the GOAT. Wizards loves putting this guy in every precon, and it makes sense why. He's a 6 mana 6/6. He gets Vigilance, so you don't feel bad swinging with him, and he gets effects when you swing. It's great. And bring back a mana value 3 or less in a deck that consists of 2/2s. Very, very easy to do. And next is I believe this is a new card from Foundations. It might have been a reprint. Return all creature cards with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Really, really good in this deck. As looking down here at the curve, 28 cards. There's a lot of them. On to some of the protection cards. These are cards that'll hopefully dissuade people from killing you or dealing with your stuff. So Ghostly Prison, just a nice little tax card if people want to attack you. Grand Abolisher makes it so people can't stop you doing stuff on your turn, which is nice. Lightning Greaves will just protect your Drana and Linvala or whatever key piece you have on the board that's stopping opponents from doing things. White has a counterspell, might as well play it. Yeah, is it that good of a counterspell? Not really, but whenever it actually gets off and it works, it feels really good. Paladin class, this one's a little interesting because it's a little more than protection. I put it in here because the first effect is spells your opponent's cast during your turn cost 1 more, which protects you a little bit, makes counterspells 3 or 4 mana if they're running like standard stuff. The level 2 creatures get +1/+1, which is nice because you're running a lot of low power things. And then level 3, whenever you attack until end of turn, target attacking creature goes +1/+1 for each other attacking creature and gains double strike. Great way to finish out a game. Swiftfoot Boots are Swiftfoot Boots, same reason why you're running Lightning Greaves, they're just a little bit worse in this deck. And Windborn Muse is Ghostly Prison on a creature. Pretty cool. Also a little more expensive, but that's fine. So removal, you're playing black and white, so you have access to like every good removal card in the game. The only downside is you'll go up against an Animar and your deck doesn't work against them. but that's fine. Because they won't be able to play the game, hopefully. Who knows? Anguish Unmaking, exile target non-land permanent, you lose your life. Broken card. Austere Command is one of the few board wipes you run. It's nice because if a lot of your deck is value 3 or less and somebody's playing like Big Green or something, or whatever has a high CMC board, it does just get rid of one without getting rid of your stuff. Calamity's Wake is just a graveyard hate spell, which is nice. Spark, another just great Orzhov, just exile something. It's value 4 or greater, but a lot of times you're exiling value 4 or greater things in more casual pods. Disenchant is artifact or enchantment removal. Farewell is probably the best board wipe in the game. Generous Gift is nice for getting rid of anything really. Go for the Throat, 2 to destroy non-artifact creature. Hero's Downfall, better murder. Yeah. Gets rid of Planeswalkers, which is nice. Mortify, destroy target creature or enchantment. Just another good card. And obviously Path to Exile and Swords of Plowshare. The 2 cards that are automatically played in every single white deck in Commander. Because, yeah, they're just really, really good. Okay, so onto the hate cards, or I guess onto ramp. There's Arcane Signet, Soul Ring, and Pearl Medallion, because there's a lot of white creatures and a lot of white cards. Looking at the deck stats here, and most of them have at least one colorless mana pit. But yeah, onto the hate. Going off alphabetically. Archon of Emeria, flying. A lot of the deck will have like flying or some type of keyword, which I think you just find with white cards. But yeah, flying. Each player can cast more than one spell each turn. Non-basic lands your opponents control. Enter tapped. So it's a little bit of land hate. And obviously this effect also affects you, but who cares? You can activate so many activate abilities with Drana and Linvala, so it's fine. On to the next card, Authority of the Consuls. Reprint in Foundations. This card, I saw this in a draft and I fell in love with it because, holy moly, this card is so good for one white. Creatures enter tapped, which lets you swing more aggressively, which is nice. And also, whenever a creature an opponent controls enters, you gain 1 life. Nice little life gain. Even Mind Sensor, Flash Flying. If opponent would search their library, that player searches the top 4 cards instead. Good way to stop people from tutoring for combos. Blind Obedience is 1 and a white. Extort, which means you can pay black or white when you cast a spell if this is on the board, and each opponent loses 1 life, you gain that much life. Super broken commander. You pay a black or a white, you gain 3 life. It's wild. Artifacts and creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Hey, nice turn 1 Soul Ring. Unfortunately, it enters tapped. Haha. Boromir. This helps countering free spells, which is really, really good if you're playing in a higher power pod. Obviously, I play with an Animar player who can do some infinite shenanigans with Animar's effect and bouncing 0 cost, essentially, colorless things to hand. I mean, works against Fierce Guardianship, Force of Will, Force Negation, any of the really, really good blue counter spells. And then you can sacrifice them to give your creatures indestructibles to save you against the board wipe. Containment Priest is 1 and a white flash non-token creature would enter. If it wasn't cast, exile it instead. So if somebody tries to do some Joda shenanigans, for example, you can say no. Actually, I think Joda might cast from top of deck, so it might not work. But it helps when people are cheating in cards. Deafening Silence. Each player can't cast more than 1 non-creature spell each turn, which is nice. Obviously, this includes yourself, but a lot of your non-creatures are just removal cards, and you're not playing that on your turn. So, Doorkeeper Thrall, Flash Flying. A lot of this deck also has Flash. Artifacts and creatures entering don't cause abilities to trigger. So if somebody casts something, you can respond, cast this in, and boom, they don't get their abilities. Drana's Emissary. Flying at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. This will just slowly drain down people at the table. Because the one thing I've noticed with this deck is win cons while playing Stax, or in this case Hatebears, feels very grindy, very slow. Similar to something like Aristocrats, where you're just kind of outvaluing and slowly grinding down the game. Which is fine, and it depends on the people that are playing it. But yeah, this is one of those ways to slowly drain down your opponents. Eidolon of Rhetoric. Each player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn. This is great to slow down the game as well. Celestial Core Sadistic Pilgrim. Whenever another creature enters, you gain a life. Whenever another of your creatures dies, each one will lose 1 life. Elish Norn. I love Elish Norn. I'd call her other things, but this is YouTube. You're playing a lot of weenies, so giving them all +2/+2 is really nice. And the added benefit of giving -2/-2 to opponents' cards does get rid of a lot of cards on board. Hushbringer, flying lifelink, creatures entering don't cause abilities to trigger, which is great. Hushwing Griff, a flash flying, creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. Another one. There's a lot of these effects in white, and I kind of just threw them all in. Cannonball, this is similar to Drana's Initiary. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, that player loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. So this will just slowly drain people down over the game. Kataki, War's Rage. All artifacts have at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice this artifact unless you pay 1, which is really useful for decks that, for example, make a lot of treasure, or decks just run a lot of artifacts that aren't mana rocks. Knight of Dusk Shadow, Menace, and your opponents can't gain life is the main reason to play it. You can also do a black and 1, so give it +1/+1 till end of turn, which could be useful if you swing later on, especially with having Menace. Kunaros, Hound of Athreos, Vigilance, Menace, Lifelink. Jesus Christ, he has so many keywords. And creature cards in graveyards can't enter the battlefield. Lol graveyard hate. Players can't cast spells from graveyard. Thank God. Ley Line of the Void, everything that goes in the graveyard gets exiled instead. It's a very good card. Michiko Kanda, True Seeker. Whenever source an opponent controls deals damage to you, that player sacrifices a permanent of your choice. So if somebody attacks you because you're playing Hatebears and people want to be able to play Magic the Gathering, which is understandable. They attack you, you say, haha, sacrifice, I don't know, whatever that you don't like on their board. Except for the fact that, yeah, I believe you have to target it. That player sacrifices a permanent of your choice. Maybe not, actually. I don't know. I'd have to look more into that. That might not target, so it gets around stuff like Hexproof. Rule of Law, each player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn. We love not playing Magic the Gathering. Soulless Jailer, permanent cards in graveyards can't enter the battlefield. Players can't cast non-creature spells from graveyard or exile. Another good graveyard hate also works for things like exile, which is really nice. A lot of red decks right now will just like, oh, put the top 2 cards in your exile. You can play them this turn with stuff like Ren's Resolve or all those types of cards. Spirit of the Labyrinth, each player can't draw more than 1 card each turn, which is really, really nice because people draw way too much in Commander, and I think people gonna kind of get a little more strict about that and punish people doing that. Strict Protector, flying whenever a permanent entering causes a triggered ability trigger, counter ability unless its controller pays 2. This is a great hate card. I think this is one of the better ones because it doesn't flat out negate. It gives your opponent the choice, and they have to play around it, which is an interesting way to play the game. Suture Priest, whenever another creature you control enters, you gain 1 life. Whenever an opponent's creature enters, that player may lose a life. So this is kind of like Combo or Celestial Core, but instead of when one of your things dies, it's when an opponent plays a card. Thalia, this is a standard staple. It might actually be in like Modern too. I don't know. First strike, non-creature spells cost 1 more. Great hate card. Thalia, Heretic Cathar, creatures and non-basic lands your opponent control enter tapped. Another just really good card. And obviously, non-basics. People play so many non-basics right now that, yeah. Thorn of Amethyst, non-creature spells cost 1 more to play. Another little nice hate card. Tithe Taker, during your turn, spells your opponent's cast cost 1 more to cast, and abilities your opponents activate cost 1 more to activate, unless they're mana abilities. And has Afterlife 1, which really doesn't mean much. But, yeah. So this is similar to Grand Abolisher effect, except it also works on activated abilities, which is really, really nice. Torpor Orb, creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. Good card. Wisp Drinker Vampire, flying, and whenever another creature you control with power 2 or less enters, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. You have so many creatures with power 2 or less that this goes off on most of your creatures. Apparently this is restricted in Pauper EDH. Oh, because it's an uncommon, that's why. Onto the lands. The land's not really important. You're running Caves of Koilos, Command Tower. Obviously they're both like 2 of the better budget duels that enter untapped. Concealed Courtyard. This, I believe, is called a Slowlands. I don't know. I think people have a bunch of names for it. Either way, this is another great budget one. Obviously, if you want to play Shock and a fetch land, go for it. But this deck is $232, and that's because the sideboard is $40, which I'll talk about in a bit. Reliquary Tower, because you can end up drawing a lot of cards. Playing a lot of basics, because why not? I really don't think it matters that much. Restless Fortress can become a creature, which is really nice. Also, when it attacks, defending player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. It's a really, really nice card, especially with all the taxing you do. If you can only cast 1 spell a turn, you can play a creature and then pay to make this into a creature. Essentially, you get 2 creatures for a turn. Tainted Field is kind of a dual land after turn 1 because you're most likely to play Swamp early. Tectonic Edge is just a way to blow up stupid lands that people abuse too much. Like, I think Great Henge, that might be an artifact. Either way, they're way too strong lands, so yeah. And Temple of Silence, because Scry 1 is nice. So on the sideboard, and 2 cards that I have here that I would usually just put everything in the maybe board, but these 2 obviously go together, is Exquisite Blood and Sanguine Bond. This is obviously an infinite. There are many more ways to do this currently, as well in standard with creatures. Bloodthirsty Conqueror, or I think it's Bloodthirsty Conqueror, or the new vampire guy that got recently printed in Foundations. Does one of the 2 effects. There's a Bat from Bloomburrow that does one of the 2 effects. There's so many different ways to trigger this right now, and it's funny that they're all in standard pretty much. But yeah, this is a very, very easy way to win the game. Obviously, if your opponents get rid of one, it's no longer easy. But this is a very, very powerful combo you could play in this deck if you wanted to end games faster or more efficiently. Some other really good cards. There's some really good cards in here, and there's some alright cards. So Black Market Connections. This is a great way to get around the whole, you can only cast 1 spell each turn, and taxing, because this is on a enchantments effect that you're getting every turn. Won't count towards non-creatures or casting spells. Castle Lockdwayne is a very good mono black draw card. A draw card and lose life equal to the number of cards in your hand. Later on, this is good if your hand is empty. It was just $5, and I'm like, I won't put it in the main deck because I don't think you need it with all the draw. Dam is a very, very good removal spell. Also, can be a board wipe with the overload cost. Dauthi Voidwalker, very, very good graveyard hate card. When an opponent's graveyard, or when a card we put into an opponent's graveyard, they exile it, you can sacrifice it to choose an exiled card and play it without paying its mana cost. Drana Magistrate is probably one of the best commander hate cards because it is always going to do something, because you're going to typically try and get it before your opponents cast their commanders. Esper Sentinel is a good draw card because people aren't just going to pay 1 every time they cast a spell. Shield is a really, really interesting protection card. So prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to you this turn. For each 1 damage prevented this way, create a 2 and white and black inkling creature token with flying. So if somebody tries to go big and swing at you for a game, you can just Shield in response. Make a bunch of 2/1s, don't take the damage, and then hopefully reverse the tables and kill them on your next turn. Liaison Shroud of Dusk. So I was running this for a while, but I found a few more cards and I wanted to put in more draws, so I did take it out. But the first effect doesn't do anything. It's specifically a commander effect. It has flying lifelink. Whenever a player casts a spell, they lose 2 life. It's a nice drain card. Unfortunately for 5 mana, even though it is a 5/5 flying lifelink, it's a little slow for the deck, and I'd rather just play a Phyrexian Arena, for example. Mother of Runes is a very, very good white card. You can tap it to give a creature you control protection from color of your choice. So let's say they try and kill Drana and Linvala or one of your other hate cards. You just tap Mother of Runes, give protection, and they can't deal with it. Opposition Agent is a great way to stop people from searching their libraries. Obviously, in more casual games, this won't be as strong, as people are only really going to be searching stuff through Terramorphic Expanse, which who cares? Or maybe some black decks are playing some worse tutors. Read the Bones is just another draw card. It's just 3 mana instead of the 2 ones that I was using, and I'd rather just use 2 mana. Smothering Tithe is a very, very good tax card, and people hate it. I didn't put it in because it was $33, and all it does is make trader tokens, which, with the artifact hate cards, not the greatest thing in the world. Teferi's is Teferi's. This card is so, so good. Obviously, you probably put this in most white decks. I'll quickly go through some recs. I was looking earlier, but like Dark Ritual, I don't think you care about. If you really want to run tutors, you can. Hey, look, whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. I think Combo is also a very interesting card. I think it's a little wordy for me, if I'm being completely honest. I'm just not running it, but I think it's a very, very like good card to run this deck. Creatures can attack you or planeswalker you control unless they pay a Phyrexian mana. There's just kind of a worse Ghostly Prison or Windborn Muse. I don't really care about it. Childred is a very good card. This card is 100. What the fuck? Okay, Elish Norn. You don't really have many ETBs to double the trigger of, which is the main reason why I'm not running it. If you want to specifically run it for permanents entering the battlefield, don't cause abilities of permanents your opponents control to trigger, there's so many cards that you can run already that do that. Lothos Knights, whenever play cast a second spell, they lose a life and you make a treasure token. Silence is a very good card. Although I'm not a massive fan of targeted cards in Commander, like things that only hit one person and not affect the entire table. Because you do that, you affect one person and other people come after you. Either way, there's a lot of really, really good hate cards. Like, just going through all of these, you could probably run more Planeswalkers. Yeah, sure, dude. Run Orcish Bowmasters, you know? Deadly Rollick is a great commander card. But yeah, there's so many really, really strong hate cards, especially in the smaller power range. So there's so many different changes you can make to this if you don't like it, or if people at your local store plays a specific type of deck that you want to counter out of. But this is pretty generic for me, and that's how I like to go. Either way, I'm done. Thank you for watching. Sorry for not uploading for the past 3 weeks. I kind of got busy, and I'm also working on what I want to call EDH rectifying, where I think people are not really building decks properly right now, and we'll just put like Smothering Tide in every white deck, for example. That'll be something more scripted, and I don't know when I'm going to release that, because this is not just like a, hey, look at this deck as I talk for 20-30 minutes. But yeah, goodbye, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.